Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, we are back again for another episode of Buford Pusser, The Other Story. I call it The Other Story because we all heard what a hero that Buford was, and I think as people have come to know the real Buford Pusser, they understand that what we saw in Walking Tall was not a true story. So now they're looking to find out more and more about it. A lot of it had to do with Pauline's death. She was shot and killed in an ambush allegedly meant for the sheriff himself, but there's a lot of evidence that's been turned up that suggests that that might not be true. So it reached the point where there was enough evidence submitted that the TBI has gone to the step that February of last year they exhumed Pauline for an autopsy that she should have had in 1967. So now that that has been done, and they've done a lot more in the way of interviews, uncovering evidence. They've done things that were not done back in the original investigation in 1967. So they've learned a lot, and now they've turned a report in to the McNairy County District Prosecutor, Mark Davidson, and he's going to make a decision about what to do with the information that they have submitted to him. Now, you've got to wonder what that is and what that he's going to look at. Well, one thing is going to be the sufficiency of the evidence that has been submitted. And the prosecutor has to believe that there's enough evidence there that is sufficient to warrant him making some sort of move. Now, there's several things he could do. He could take it to a grand jury and ask that Buford be indicted, even though that Buford is no longer with us. But that would allow for a decision to be made. I guess he could possibly just come out and say, okay, from all the evidence, it appears that Buford either was or was not involved in his wife's death. And that would be a possible ending. It could be that he would encourage the TBI to administratively close the case, saying, you got the evidence, you think you found the person who was behind Pauline's murder, and go ahead and close it as a cold case. Just go ahead and close it. So there's a lot of things that can happen there. He's also going to consider the interest in the case, and he's going to look at factors such as the nature and seriousness of the investigation, which of course was looking into Pauline's death, and that alone was a serious matter that just seemed to be swept under the rug back in the original investigation. And like I've stated on my YouTube channel several times, I believe that a lot of that was politically motivated. Buford had enough pull with individuals to keep the prosecution or keep investigators from learning what they needed to learn. Of course, the prosecutor will look at Buford's background, the different things that he's alleged to have been involved in. Of course, back in Buford's era, a lot of that didn't come out back then. People were afraid to talk. And I understand a lot of people have come forward. And the reason I know this is because a lot of them contacted me through my Facebook page telling me about things they knew. And I would encourage them to contact the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation so that they could look into it. And in some cases they did. Other cases, they asked for assistance in contacting them, which I was glad to do. Having been in law enforcement myself, I know how important that is. So, they'll be looking into a lot of the claims that have been made against Buford in that regard. There is also the concern about the possible outcome of what happens with all this. Well, nothing's going to happen to Buford. He was killed in a drunk driving accident back in 1974. So, but the hope is that it will give closure to Pauline's family members, a lot of people around the different communities in McNairy County, because a lot of those people feared Buford. They felt like he was a bully, felt like he took advantage of his badge. So there is that to be considered. And like I said, there's the impact on the community itself. Once upon a time, Buford brought a lot of tourism into McNairy County. And that is something that doesn't happen anymore. You look at the museum, it doesn't get tourists like it used to anymore. It's closed half the time. So if anything, having reopened this investigation would possibly be good for the economy there, because I think a lot of people that knew the original story would now come back to see things, try to evaluate them for themselves, and to make their own determination what really happened. Another thing he's going to look at, most likely, is the quality of the evidence, the reliability, the truthfulness, the admissibility. And admissibility is not going to be as big of a thing when you're looking at if he plans to take it to a grand jury, because the standard for impaneling a grand jury is not the same as trying to get a conviction against someone. Like I've stated before, Buford had a lot of political influence. He was friends with Ray Blanton, who was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives at that time. Both men lived in Adamsville and knew each other quite well. As a matter of fact, Buford, a Republican, campaigned for a Democrat, Ray Blanton, when Blanton later ran for governor of the state of Tennessee. And of course, he won that office. And it was thought by many that he would ask Buford to take over the leadership of the Department of Public Safety, which would have meant that he had a lot of authority with the TBI and the State Highway Patrol. Well, of course, it was later found out that Blanton was a corrupt governor. His administration was selling pardons, paroles, commutations to inmates who could come up with the money that could afford to do such things. And Governor Blanton was removed from office early by what they call impeachment Tennessee style. And by that, what they did was swore in the new governor-elect 3 days early before he could sign off on an additional 52 paroles, commutations, probations, whatever. So Blanton was a dirty governor in a lot of ways. So much so that even though he died in the mid-90s, in 2018, they finally connected him with the murder for hire death of a Chattanooga businessman, Samuel Pettyjohn. And so even after his death, they found Blanton to be dirty in things that they didn't know about. And keep in mind, he and Buford were well acquainted, they were friends. So Blanton may have had enough political power to keep Buford out of trouble in 1967. All these things have to be considered. Then there's also the investigative findings, and that's going to be basically what the TBI has been able to turn up over the years, the information that they've gained, things they know now that they did not know back in the 60s and early 70s. Like I said, a lot of people have come forward. A lot of people want to talk about it. A lot of people want to tell about the things that they knew. I know that Buford had several girlfriends, some of them still living. There were people that saw things, heard things, they've written about it. So that may be considered as part of the procedure. Beyond that, you get into other things, and there we're talking about the fairness of it all. Should the prosecution be based on an objective view of the law and the facts and not influenced by personal feelings, biases, or political considerations? I'm reading that now because back in the day, Buford was a political animal. He knew how to work the system. He worked it against the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission there in Tennessee when he was not invited to raids in his own county because the people at the ABC didn't trust Buford. I think a lot of law enforcement officials knew that there was a lot of leaks that went on. People were getting tips. It kind of goes back to the fact that when you look back at it now, there's all these claims that Buford was responsible for having cleaned up the state line. Now you can't find anybody that can name a single place that he closed down, a single state liner he sent to prison. So, you know, I'm sure that might come into play into the decision. I think the prosecutor's decision on what to do will be largely based upon what he's been able to see, what he's been able to observe, anything new that he's been able to learn in the way of information that didn't exist in the 60s and 70s. And like I said, the standard for what he has to do now is less than what it would be if he was actually taking Buford to court. Because as I said, there's no way he can do that. Buford's dead. But I think he understands that the reputation that McNairy County got during Buford's time as sheriff created problems for the county. Gave it a black eye. You know, they were known as Murder City, USA. So there is that to think about. So just thought I'd give you a brief look at what might be going on in the background, things that a lot of people don't know, have never heard before. So that's it for today. And until then, just remember, as I always say, truth has no agenda. And thanks for watching. And I'm going to go fishing.